Hi, this is Dr. Karen Wilson Starks, your host for the Voice of Leadership and for Dr. Karen Speaks Leadership. And today we are talking about open and closed doors. Recently, my husband and I took the Cog Railway up to the top of Pikes Peak. And this is a really spectacular trip to go up to the top of Pikes Peak. It's very beautiful at the top. It's more than 14,000 feet above sea level, and it's the place where America the Beautiful was written. Now, I had not been on the Cog Railway since they've remodeled it, and they remodeled it between 2017 and about 2021. This cog railway has been going up to Pikes Peak since the 1800s, and that's an engineering marvel by itself to think that this railway could go all the way up to the top of Pikes Peak from Manitou Springs in Colorado, which is just outside of Colorado Springs. Now, back in the olden days, when I used to take the cog railway up to the top of Pikes Peak, you could take any train during the day to go up there. You could sit in any seat on the train that was open, and you could come back on any train so long as you did not miss the last train of the day. There was a tremendous amount of flexibility, and it was a lot of fun because you could stay up there for a while, get everything done that you wanted to do, see all the sights, have something to eat in the little visitors shack at the top. At the time was a little visitor shack, and you could also go to the gift shop. Now it's been significantly modernized, so the platforms are much larger up there to view the sights all the way around. It takes longer to walk at the top because of the way they built the platforms. And the visitor center is much more extensive, a much nicer place than the original one. And so it takes a little bit longer if you're going to see the visitor center. The other thing to keep in mind is that with the new plan, you have limitations. So the new rules are you have an assigned seat on a particular train, and you must come back on that exact same train in the exact same seat. The train also has what they call a 3-seat side and a 2-seat side. And back in the day, you would get on whatever side you wanted to get on going up. And if you chose to, you'd ride the opposite side coming down. It just so happens that the 3-seat side is the most scenic going up and coming down. And when you purchase a ticket in advance, the Cog Railway automatically assigns you a seat unless you pay an extra fee and get to choose your own seat. And it's not clear, at least with the way that we did it, whether your seat is going to be a window seat, a middle seat, or an aisle seat. And so it turns out we had a middle seat, we had an aisle seat on the 3-seat side. And also, what's kind of interesting is in the previous way the train used to work, you could cross the aisle at any time, stand up. If there was a better photo op on the other side of the train, you could actually take a picture on that side and so on. Now, you cannot get up and cross the aisle while the train's in motion. You can stand in place, although not very long and not very often. And going up, you have the windows down most of the time until it gets much colder as you get to the top. There's really about a 40-degree difference in temperature from the bottom of the mountain all the way up to the top of the mountain. So the temperature changes significantly. And in the past, when we were standing up, you could take a picture out the window and really have a very good view. Now it's hard to get those pictures outside of the open window, and you may be trying to shoot the picture through the glass window, which creates a tremendous glare. So a little bit more difficult for photography in the new way of doing things. Now, what's interesting is that because there is assigned seating and limited movement, because you can't change seats on the train either, and especially not while it's in movement, it's harder to get everything done that you want to get done. And because you have to come back on the same train, it's only 40 minutes at the top. That is a very short period of time for this type of a train expedition. You will not get to do everything that you would want to do at the top of the mountain in only 40 minutes. I was very disappointed with that part because I never got a chance to see what was truly in the visitor center, and I had to speed around at the top even to get to the various visual sites. And let me mention, it's not easy to speed around at 14,000 feet altitude. You automatically need to walk a little slower because there's much less oxygen at the top. And so this became a challenge. So I barely got through the sites on the top of Pikes Peak. And my husband didn't get through the whole thing of walking through the sites because he was walking a lot more slowly than I was. And of course, because there are no bathrooms on the train, one of the stops you have to make at the top is to the restroom facility. So that's a given. You must go to the restroom, maybe see a site or two, and then you're back on the train and you have to come back down. Now, the train is a little confusing when it comes to returning and getting back down the mountain. And they warn you, they tell you, this train will leave precisely at X hour. Make sure that you are there because if you are not there, the train is going to leave. Now, you get that briefing over and over on the way up to the top of Pikes Peak. And once the train lands, they remind you again, they tell you all about the fact that the train does not wait for you. So if you're late, you're going to miss the train. Well, what was interesting about that is that there was some confusion about getting back to the train, and there were a few things they did not reference or tell you about. So one of the confusions is if you show up at the track and you're the only train there, you don't know to distinguish between your train and another train. So when we were about to leave, there were two trains on the track. I didn't know which one was our train, and I didn't remember the exact detail of where we were parked. And so they look just alike. They're all red trains. They have cars one, two, and three. And I remember hesitating on the platform, which one is our train? Because, it had compartment one, but I wasn't sure that was the right train. And it's a good thing that I didn't get on that one because our train was the next one over. And you had to cross over a little bit of I'll say a little bridging area to get to where our train was. And I thought, wow, I lost a couple minutes just fooling around with that to get to the train. And my husband was standing in front of that platform, although I couldn't see him from where I was. And he was worried, where is she? How come she's not getting here to the train? But as it turned out, I was there in time. We both got on the train, we'd gotten our seats, and we were fine. Now, what is confusing is to know which door to get on to get to your compartment. So there was another couple, another older couple, and they apparently went to the wrong door in terms of getting on this train. And so you can't cross between the cars. So they got off the train, walked up to the correct door, which was in the same compartment where we were, and right before they got to the door, the train door closed. And it was exactly 12 o'clock noon, not a second off. And the train pulled out of the station. And those of us who were in that compartment one, we were all shocked and mortified. What? You closed the door? You left these people on the platform? And we just were amazed and outraged in the sense that the conductor would leave the people on the platform. And he just went along as though it was no big deal. We leave people every day was kind of like his attitude. And the thing that's interesting, if you get left, it's really a big deal because the seats on the other trains are all sold. You're not going to be able to take an empty seat on another train to come back down. And what they warn you about is that I'll say the staff up at the top of the mountain, like the ranger staff, they drive you down for an exorbitant rate. It's a long way to drive and it costs a lot of money. And once you get down to the bottom on the driving route, you're still a long way away from Manitou Springs where you're parked. So you have to take maybe an $80 Uber ride even to get back to the train depot in Manitou Springs. So it is no minor issue to miss the train. Made me think about the days when my husband and I lived in Germany, because in Germany, it's such a precise culture. And if they tell you the train is pulling out of the station at 12 o'clock noon, do not show up at 12:01. The train will be gone. And so it's really on that kind of a system being so precise. Now, what they don't tell you that really could be helpful if you did know is to give you, like I said, the exact location of your train on the track, just in case there's another train that's there when you get there to minimize that confusion. And so you don't lose time. They should give you some grid coordinates so you know where your train is parked. And secondly, my husband noticed that each train actually did have a train number. It's real small, written on the front of the train. They probably should have shared that because then you would be able to distinguish your train from another train that was there since they look exactly the same. But we weren't given the train number, so there was no way to actually tell which train was ours. The other thing they didn't share, even though they said be on time, we leave precisely at this hour, the conductor talked about this later after we had left these people up at the top of Pikes Peak. He mentioned that once the door shuts, it can't be reopened. Now, he didn't say that in any of his previous briefings. That might have been useful information to know because these people were standing directly in front of the door. And you would think if you're right there in front of the door that they could open the door. He said, but no, once that door is shut, he has no ability to open the door. Well, we didn't know that. The other thing that we didn't know, and that's interesting, is it's such a precision operation because at the same time we're going back down the track, there's another train coming up the track, and there is only one track. So there's a place where our train going down has to pull over into a slight waiting area and let the upbound train take the main track and continue up the mountain. So if you don't get there at the right time, you would cause a delay because then the upbound train has to wait for you to get to the point where you pull off. And so all of this is relevant. It's down to a precise science, but we weren't informed about those parts of the situation. Although I think it would have been useful to know some of that in advance. Hi, it's Dr. Karen here, reminding you that change is very challenging and difficult, even under the best of circumstances. If you are going through an organizational change, it goes better when you know the steps, the order of the steps, and what to do. So contact me to walk through what will work best for your organization. I can be reached at Dr. Dr. Karen, Karen, at transleadership.com. We were going through this experience and thinking about these open and closed doors. I thought about a few applications, some workplace applications, and also just some applications in life. When we think about the workplace, there are open and closed doors in the workplace as well. There are some time limited work related opportunities, and those opportunities can cycle and circle around for a period of time. There's a window in which you may be able to avail yourself of an opportunity for a promotion, for a new job. Maybe it's an overseas posting or position, or perhaps it's a lateral move where you have a chance for some cross training in a new area that you want to learn about. And maybe if you don't take it this month or this year, the door is still open next year or the year after. And there comes a point when that door shuts and you really miss whatever that opportunity is. And mind you, some closed doors are really a benefit. God will close the door because it's really not in your best interest. Okay, so that's fine. You don't want to walk through a door that He has closed in that case. And in other times, a closed door is something that you missed the timeline. It would have been to your benefit. And now things are worse for you because you didn't walk through the door. So we'll talk about that a little bit more in the life application section, which I'll mention now. And that is, in life, we are here on earth for a time and a purpose. And the time is shorter than we think. And as James 4:14 reminds us, our lives are but a vapor that appears for a short while and then vanishes away. And even if you live a very long life, let's say 100 years or more, that's a long, long life. 100 years is just a small blip on the eternal calendar. And the longer you live, the faster each year goes. I can't believe how short it is now from one Christmas to the next. So our lives really are but a vapor that appears for a short while and then vanishes away. And then the book of Ecclesiastes, and particularly the 12th chapter, reminds us to remember our Creator in the days of our youth, while we can still remember our Creator, while we can still make some choices because we're still here on the planet, we're in our right mind. And he says, because the evil days are coming and we may not have the opportunity to make the choice that we think that we have. Sometimes we think that we can wait until later to make a decision for God and for his purposes for our lives. And what we don't know is that we might not even be here in that next year. Our life might end and we may no longer be on the planet. And we also miss the fact that we may not be in a position to make a decision for God because now our hearts are hardened the way that Pharaoh's heart was hardened because at every turn he kept rejecting God's opportunity till finally he just missed it altogether and his heart was so hard he wasn't going to choose the right thing anyway. And we have to remember that even as the door may close, such as on this train, and this couple was left standing on the platform. God is patient. He doesn't close the door right away. He's really not willing that any should perish. He's giving us plenty of time to make our decision. However, if you don't make a decision in the time that's allotted, at some point, the door is going to close. And I'm thinking about Noah, who was preaching for years and years about this flood, these rains that were going to come. And back on the earth at that time, it had never rained. So the people didn't know what rain was. They didn't understand this concept. But he said it was going to be rain. He said they were going to need to be in this ark of safety. And he was building this big boat. Nobody understood it. They thought he was crazy, building this big, huge ark. And at some point, at the appointed time when the rains were to come, God is the one who put Noah, his family, and the animals all in the ark. And then God shut the door. Now, once God closes the door, you're not getting in. And God closed the door of that ark. If you weren't in the ark at the time he closed the door, I don't care how the floods were raging outside. You could be knocking on the boat, whatever. You could not get into the ark. Similar thing is true with Sodom and Gomorrah. At the time when God chose to destroy these two wicked cities, Lot and his family had a short window of time to get out of the city. And if they didn't get out, they would be subject to the fire and brimstone destruction of the city. So all those people down in Sodom and Gomorrah who were not out, they were caught in the fire and the brimstone. Lot and his family, they left quickly. In order to escape this destruction, the angel let them out. And unfortunately, Lot's wife, as we know, she hesitated and she looked back. And in her case, she missed the train to safety because she was turned into a pillar of salt. So there's the warning in Hebrews 3rd chapter, verses 15 through 17, where it says, today, if you will hear his voice, harden not your heart. So God is calling each of us today, and while we are still here. And while we are still here, we can say yes to God, yes to a relationship with him, yes to his purpose for our lives while we are still here. And Jesus would go on to say in John 9, starting in verse 4, he talked about how he must work the works of his Father who sent him. And he says, I must work while it is day, because night comes when no man can work. And night comes for each of us in our individual lives And night also comes when the world ends. So if we happen to be here when the world ends and that night comes, there's nothing more that we can do because the night has come. So some of the lessons I want to bring out of this whole concept of open and closed doors is that just like on the train, they sound the alarm, the whistle. They give you a period of time to get to the train. The whistle starts at about 10 minutes before departure time. So when you hear the alarm sounding, it means you better be moving to the destination if you expect to get on the train before the door closes. So we have to heed the warnings when we hear them. When that whistle blows, we've better be moving feet to the train. You have to get to the train on time. And when you get there on time, there is a specific reserved seat waiting just for you on the train. And there's no seat on another train. Don't miss your train. Heed the warnings when you hear the whistle blowing. That's true in our lives. No matter what we're doing in our lives, there's a whistle blowing, and we don't want to miss it. The Apostle John in Revelation 4 talks about seeing a door standing open in heaven. And he heard a first voice of a trumpet that was saying to him, "Come up here, and I will show you things which must take place after this." So we are seeing a picture of the future through John, where God has an open door in heaven, an opportunity for us to be there and join him in the heavenly place. So Jesus said he's going to prepare a place for us in heaven so that where he is, we can be also, and we can come there also. And John got a glimpse of that heavenly place in the vision that he had while on the Isle of Patmos. So I'd say it's more than a vision. He actually took a journey in the spirit while he was on the Isle of Patmos. And then we find in the life of the Apostle Paul in 2 Corinthians, the second chapter, and he talks about how the Lord opens doors. And he says, when he came to Troas to preach Christ's gospel, and a door was opened to him by the Lord to preach the good news of the gospel, because it's through that preaching of the good news that we even know about the door in heaven that is standing open, and that Jesus is beckoning to us to come in to that open door. And he goes on to say that we are to God the fragrance of Christ among those who are being saved and also among those who are perishing. So while we are here, we are blowing the whistle, and we are reminding and warning people that the train is going to depart, and they have an opportunity to get on it before the door closes. So I'd like to conclude our time today with a reading from Revelation. And this is also a reminder and a warning. And we know that the revelation is the revelation of Jesus Christ, and it was given to encourage the church, to remind the church that he is coming back and to remain faithful in the meantime. So as the message from Jesus is going out to the church at Philadelphia, this is what is written in Revelation, the third chapter, verses 7 and 8 of Revelations 3. And to the angel of the church in Philadelphia, write, these things says he who is holy, he who is true, he who has the key of David, he who opens and no one shuts, and shuts and no one opens. I know your works. See, I have set before you an open door, and no one can shut it. For you have a little strength, have kept my word, and have not denied my name. So though we have little strength, we can keep God's word. We can proclaim and not deny his name. And when we do that, we see that there's a door standing open in heaven, a door that no one can shut but God himself. And he stands at the door right now and is knocking. So let us open the door that's open. Let us walk through the door that is open. Don't let the train door close on you. God has issued the invitation and he wants you on the train. Have a blessed day. Hi, it's Dr. Karen here, and I want to tell you about my book, which is called Lead Yourself First, the Senior Leader's Guide to Engaging Your People for Greater Performance and Impact. It's a book to inspire you about the challenges that you have overcome and the vision that you've realized in your life. It's from these struggles, triumphs, and temporary setbacks that others will be inspired and that they will have the courage to lead themselves first and also to lead others. In the first chapter, which is called Envision the Future, I talk about the rocky education path that I had to forge and overcome to realize my vision to become a psychologist. And that was all the way from elementary school straight through graduate school. There were obstacles. The path wasn't easy. And yet, entering graduate school with only $30 in the bank, I ended up finishing graduate school with no debts. When you walk step by step in the vision, even when it doesn't look like where you want to be, doors open and resources come to you because you hold the vision and you keep walking. So here's what I wanted to say to you. Lead yourself first. This book will walk you through your journey as you go through the open doors and as you continue to walk, just like I walked through mine. So get your copy of Lead Yourself First. Hold the vision for yourself and your life and be successful. You've been listening to The Voice of Leadership with me, Dr. Karen Wilson Starks. And I want to give a special thanks to jazz saxophonist Ron McMillan for granting us permission to use his gifted music on our show. Thanks for listening, and remember to go to my website, transleadership.com, for more strategies, insights, and leadership resources.